Let's jump in here. This is a question I bet you have gotten a lot, but I want to ask it to you directly. You announced that you're resigning your seat in Congress. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I put out a lengthy video on that issue explaining all of my thoughts and feelings, really addressing the issue. And it just comes down to this. I have fought for the Republican Party and President Trump for years, spending a lot of the time on the road, investing millions of dollars, helping get Republican candidates elected, and helping President Trump return to the White House after a historic election in November of 2024. I've also supported the Republican Party, paying all of my membership dues every single Congress, which is significantly important, and really working hard to bring the policies forward through legislation that our voters very much want to see made into law and promoted. However, when it came down to standing with women who were raped at 14 and 16 years old, women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and others, they say there are others, the President Trump called me a traitor. And that was shocking, and really completely outside the bounds of anything that should have happened. And so for me, this became an important decision between myself and my family, and it wasn't something I took lightly.
You mentioned President Trump's comments calling you in a Truth Social post a traitor. You were a vocal ally of the president's through all three of his campaigns. Did you feel betrayed by President Trump when he said that?
Well, here's the thing is I very much support America First policies. And so to me, that is where my loyalty lies, is to those policies and the people who elected me. And I very much appreciate the district, and I've never changed any of my policy views. However, I think that for the president to call me a traitor for standing with these women, I honestly don't really care what his opinion is. I know I did the right thing. Standing with rape victims is something that should be the easiest thing to do. It shouldn't be political. And unfortunately, it was turned into just a gigantic argument and stall tactics between the president and the speaker. And it was unfortunate to see that happen.
Have you spoken with the president since he made that comment about you?
No, I have not spoken to him.
You, prior to this rift between the two of you, correct me if I'm wrong, were fairly close in communication, right? I mean, this is a real shift for your relationship.
Less and less throughout this year. He's the president. So he's been very busy. In spite of what he said, I have not been calling him. He claims that that's happened, but I have not been calling him. The last time we spoke was back in September, and it was an unfortunate argument about the Epstein files where he told me people were going to get hurt. And I had told him, I said, the people that have gotten hurt are the women who have been victims of this. And the government, for whatever reason, administration after administration has completely kept it covered up. And so, in my view, the only people that were hurt are the victims. And if rich, powerful men get exposed for this, no matter who they are, I don't care what political party they are, and I don't care who they are, then they deserve to be exposed.
You mentioned, you said earlier, you feel like you've always been aligned with America First. President Trump has campaigned on that slogan as well as the slogan of Make America Great Again. A lot of people see those as two sides of the same coin. Do you feel like you're still part of the MAGA movement?
Well, I'm America First, and I continue to use that policy title because that's really what I believe in. I believe that means not funding foreign wars, really turning the focus on the American people, on our economy, on affordability, on solving the massive crisis of healthcare, the health insurance policies that are so expensive nowadays for many people. And, of course, I very much believe in strong, secure borders, and I think the administration has done a good job of securing the border. But my view of America first means putting the American people first, not the donor class, not the big industries, but really the American people.
Do you think President Trump has left behind those ideals that he campaigned on?
Well, I certainly hope not. And we had had a few splits in that area leading up to this. I was against getting involved in bombing Iran. I really believe when we say no more foreign wars, we should stick to it. I think what's happening in Venezuela is that's kind of going against no more foreign wars. That's kind of creating one and dabbling in regime change, and we should not be doing that. I very much believe that the focus should be the economy. It should be helping people. You know, people were knocked down really bad over 4 years after COVID. And during the Biden administration, we saw inflation skyrocket, and people just haven't gotten back up on their feet. And, you know, I had said, you know, park Air Force One in the hangar and stay home and stop this continuing revolving door of foreign leaders in the White House. Let's pull the healthcare executives in there and talk to them, and let's start working on things that matter for Americans. He and I differed on a couple of things. A central bank digital currency, I'm against that, and so is my district. And unfortunately, there was a loophole in the Genius Act, so I voted no to that. I'm against H-1B visas replacing American jobs, and he's continued to support them. I'm against 600,000 Chinese foreign students coming in and taking away opportunities from American students at American colleges and universities. So those were some key, disagreements. Oh, and as well, the state moratorium for AI. I think state rights are extremely important, and states need the right to regulate and make laws on AI and the future of AI. And people are terrified, especially in my district, of having their jobs replaced by AI. So these were some areas the president and I disagreed on, but really the ultimate, it came down to the Epstein files, women that were raped. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
That was something I wanted to ask you, and I think you're getting to it, but there's this long history of some ruptures in the relationship between you and the president over recent months. Was there one deciding moment that made it clear for you that you were going to resign?
Well, it's interesting. President Trump called me a traitor, but I voted with him 98% of the time. That's not really someone you could call a traitor. He brought in the Al-Qaeda terrorist that's now the Syrian president, who was wanted by our U.S. government with a $10 million bounty on his head up until March of this year. And I guess that was dropped under the Trump administration. He brought him into the White House, called him a great guy, sprayed his cologne all over him. And a week later, he called me a traitor for keeping my name on the discharge petition and supporting my friend Thomas Massie and supporting the Epstein women. But really, what it ultimately came down to was the president only sees loyalty as apparently a one-way street, and that's only to him. And he didn't care about all of the ways I had supported him and helped him become president, and supported his policies. I have many pieces of legislation that support his own executive orders, like Protect Children's Innocence Act. That was one of his main campaign promises to the American people. But when it came down to receiving death threats, a pipe bomb threat on my home, a pipe bomb threat on my family's construction company, multiple pizza doxing deliveries, and then ultimately very serious death threats on my own son, that really was where it came to a point of me asking, what must I do to continue to be a representative? Must I be killed like Charlie Kirk or watch one of my own children be murdered? And I think that comes to a point where any American can look at that and say that's a high bar and way too much to ask.
You were afraid, you were legitimately afraid for your safety and your family's safety after threats made against you following President Trump's comments about you.
Certainly. And unfortunately, threats are something that everyone has had to deal with in this stage of extremely toxic politics on the left and the right. We've watched it. the Minnesota lawmakers, Josh Shapiro's home being set ablaze, President Trump himself being shot at a Trump rally, and then Charlie Kirk assassinated on a college campus. So these threats are very real and they have horrific consequences. And consequences, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, that any elected official should ever have to go through, or their family should have to go through. My office has reported 773 death threats for me since I took office, and those are only the ones that came directly into the office and actually reached the accepted level of threat the Capitol Police tell us counts. It has to be direct. It can't be, I wish you would die. It has to be, I'm going to kill you. So that's how many death threats that we had reported over the years. But when direct death threats are sent on my own child, my son, because of the words of the president, that's just too much. And I hope people can understand that. As well as him saying that he would primary me, which is completely ridiculous. I voted with him again 98% of the time, helped him get elected. And that's just a ridiculous thing to put on a district that not only voted for President Trump, but also voted for me. And it's not really, it's a, how do you say it? I just think it's a completely wrong direction for the leader of a political party to try to go down and humiliate and try to beat one of his most loyal members of Congress. And I think that shows a true problem in the Republican Party.
I asked you this earlier, and you didn't seem like you wanted to say it, but everything you're saying now, I do want to ask you again, does it feel like the president betrayed you and your loyalty?
Well, I certainly, of course, yeah, of course, definitely. That's exactly what it is. And but it's unbelievable that a president of the United States wants to go after someone that has been so loyal and has voted with him 98% of the time, has legislation that reflects his policies that he campaigned on, and also a very loyal, active member of good standing in the Republican Party. And I think this is going to hurt candidate quality for Republicans going forward. I think it sends a strong message to anyone consider running, like, my goodness, if they would treat her that way after all she's done, what would that do to me? And why would I want to run as a Republican candidate? I think it also, there needs to be reflection within leaders of the Republican Party is, do we allow this type of behavior from the top? And at what point do they need to step in and really try to protect members of good standing in the Republican Party?
Ma'am, I want to ask you just a couple last questions. I always want to be respectful of your time. You have said in this interview in so many words, and you've said in other interviews, including on CNN just a few weeks ago, you said you want to move past what you called the toxic politics of our modern system. You yourself have a history of making sometimes controversial comments. Looking back, do you feel like you have anything personally to apologize for and possibly contributing to that discourse?
This seems to be the popular question from everyone that is interviewing me, and I've very much already addressed that. I don't think it has to be said over and over again in every single interview I do, but I'm sincere in my words. I think that America has been ripped apart by both sides of the aisle with toxic politics, and it comes from both parties and members of both parties. We see it in fundraising emails. And not only have I been a part of it, every Republican has and every Democrat has. I've also been a victim of it, just as many others have been victims of it. And so I think it's important for each person to take responsibility for their own action and words. And I think that responsibility falls on every single one in leadership. We have real problems in America. We have a $38 trillion debt. We have a young generation that looks to the future and doesn't have a lot of hope as they're struggling with jobs and housing. Social Security is going to become insolvent in just a few years in 2033. That affects every single one of us. So I think in the political industrial complex that has built on two parties that only know how to fight each other, it's time for people in politics to take it serious and realize that it's time to put the American people first.
You used an expression, taking responsibility for your words. I know that you've mentioned here in this interview, President Trump calling you a traitor was a breaking point for you. In the past, you've tweeted, you called Republican Congressman Bob Good a traitor. You called some Republicans who voted for President Biden's infrastructure bill traitor Republicans. You've used that language too. Do you regret that?
Yes, I've already addressed this before, and I'll stand with what I've already said. I've also been the victim of it. I was actually accused by Democrats online of being the pipe bomber on January 5th, which was such an outrageous, dangerous lie that brought death threats on me back in 21 and 22. I've also been used many times and called a traitor by Democrats in fundraising emails and campaign ads. So again, I want to reiterate, this is a two-way street, and I seem to be the only one willing to take responsibility.
And Congresswoman, in fairness, we've asked Democrats as well, we ask everybody about their past stances and past statements, but we would be remiss if we didn't ask you about this. You say you're taking responsibility for it. I just want to be really clear. Do you regret, do you apologize for saying those things?
I've already addressed this. I said it on CNN. I've said it back in 2020, and thank you. I've already addressed it.
Could you address it here again, though? And if not, why not?
Thank you. I've already addressed it.
Ma'am, I don't want to dwell here, but I don't think you have addressed it here. If it's something you regret, I mean, could you just explain why you don't want to say it again?
I'm sorry, but I don't know why you have this motive. I don't quite understand it, but I've already addressed it, and people have thanked me, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But this isn't an exercise that I should have to go through on every single interview, and it's quite unbecoming of you to continue to have to push that.
Ma'am, some people would argue that saying colleagues were traitors was unbecoming. I don't think this is an unreasonable question.
See, this is the toxic nature that I'm talking about, and now you're participating in it yourself here with 11 Alive. And so again, I think you should take responsibility of your own words, the product that you're producing here on your network. I've done my part, so I think it would be good for you to do yours.
Well, ma'am, these are your words, but it seems like we're not going to get any further here. So I do want to ask you one last question
you know what?
before we wrap up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the interview. Hopefully, good luck.
Ma'am, are you going to run again?